The shrill ringing of the phone shattered the tense silence of the living room. John leaped for the receiver, his heart pounding in his chest. It was Detective Miller, her voice tight with urgency. "We just received a call," she said. "It was him. He wants a ransom." A wave of nausea washed over John. His worst fears were confirmed. This was no random act. Emily had been taken and her abductor was playing a deadly game. His voice trembled as he asked, "How much?" $200,000, Detective Miller replied, "and he wants it by midnight tomorrow." The hours that followed were a blur of frantic activity. John liquidated assets, emptied bank accounts, and borrowed from anyone who would lend to him. Every second felt precious, every minute an eternity. The weight of his daughter's life rested heavily on his shoulders. Meanwhile, the police worked tirelessly, tapping phone lines, analyzing surveillance footage, and following every lead, no matter how insignificant. The designated drop-off point was a secluded warehouse district on the outskirts of the city. John, his nerves on edge, arrived at the desolate location, a duffel bag filled with money in his trembling hands. Unbeknownst to John, the police had set up a covert surveillance operation, ready to pounce at the right moment. The atmosphere was tense, shadows moving in the dark as everyone held their breath. An eternity seemed to pass before a rusty van, its headlights casting eerie shadows in the darkness, pulled up beside John. A gruff voice, distorted by a voice changer, instructed him to throw the bag into the van's open back. John complied, his heart pounding against his ribs. As he did so, he caught a glimpse of a small figure huddled in the back of the van. Emily. Adrenaline surged through him. He lunged for the van, but Detective Miller's voice crackled through the earpiece he'd almost forgotten he was wearing. "Don't, John! We'll get her back!" John hesitated, his paternal instincts battling with the need to obey the police. In that split second, the van sped away, tires screeching, disappearing into the night. But the police were ready. A chase ensued, a high-speed ballet of flashing lights and roaring engines that weaved its way through the deserted streets. Finally, the van screeched to a halt, cornered by a phalanx of police cars. Emily, shaken but unharmed, was pulled from the back of the van, her eyes wide with fear but alive with hope. The kidnapper, a desperate man driven by greed, was wrestled to the ground, his face a mask of defeat as the handcuffs clicked shut. John rushed to Emily, scooping her into his arms in a tearful embrace, the weight of the ordeal finally lifting from his shoulders. As the sun began to rise, casting a new light on the horizon, the family walked away together, their hearts filled with gratitude and relief. The police officers, having successfully completed their mission, congratulated each other, while the community began to come together, united by the ordeal. A new day had dawned, bringing with it the promise of hope and a brighter future for Emily and her family.